Welcome back to Worth Coin, where your pocket change might just turn into a jackpot. Today, we're diving into 10 ultra-rare wheat pennies that could be hiding in your jar of old coins or stuck in the back of a drawer. Coins that might look ordinary at first glance, but are actually worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars to the right collector. Some of these pennies are so rare, their value might just make your jaw drop. From minting mistakes to historic anomalies, these little copper treasures are turning up big rewards. So before you spend that old penny, you might want to stick around and see if you're holding a small fortune. First up, let's kick off this list with the surprising contender, the 1928 wheat penny, a coin many people overlook because of its age and common design. But don't be fooled. Even in bad condition, this coin can hold incredible value if the details line up just right. Now, picture this. A 1928 wheat penny, worn down by decades of circulation, its edges softened, Lincoln's face faded, and the wheat stalks on the reverse barely visible. At first glance, it might look like nothing more than a relic of the past, something you'd toss into a change jar and forget about. But collectors know better, and here's why. The 1928 wheat penny was minted during the interwar period, right in the heart of the Roaring Twenties, just before the Great Depression would shake the nation. It was produced in large numbers, over 134 million at the Philadelphia Mint, without a mint mark. But here's the twist. Finding one today in any kind of collectible shape is much rarer than the mintage suggests. Most of these coins were heavily circulated. They were used in daily transactions for decades, from buying a bottle of cola in the 30s to gum in the 50s. And with no mint mark and such a high mintage, most people think they're worthless. But hidden within these seemingly ordinary coins are some extremely rare errors and key traits that drive value into the thousands. One of the most valuable types of 1928 wheat pennies is the off-center strike error, where the coin is stamped with part of the design missing or shifted awkwardly. Another high-value trait is a double die obverse, where Lincoln's face or the date appears slightly double due to a misalignment at the mint. These rare varieties, even in worn or damaged condition, have sold for $5,000 to $15,000 at auction. And in pristine condition, that number climbs even higher. But even without an error, collectors pay top dollar for sharp examples of 1928 pennies with strong wheat lines, crisp lettering, and clear facial features on Lincoln, all of which are extremely rare now, due to heavy circulation and age. A mint state uncirculated 1928 penny, especially graded Ms. 66 or higher by PCGs or NGC, can bring in upwards of $35,000. Yes, for a single copper penny. So, how do you spot a valuable one? First, check for clarity in the date and lettering. Even in bad condition, if there's an unusual strike, doubling, or misalignment, don't dismiss it. Second, look closely at the edges. Off-center errors are incredibly valuable. And finally, compare it to known error examples online or with a coin expert. What makes this coin so exciting isn't just the year, it's that it hides in plain sight. It's the kind of coin you might find in Grandpa's coffee can of old pennies. The kind passed over at a flea market or hiding in a thrift store cash box. That's where the shock value really kicks in. Because people are discovering these coins and turning them into $20,000 plus paydays. And here's the kicker: if your 1928 penny happens to have a striking mint flaw combined with near-perfect surfaces, its value could push into six figures. One known example, with a flawless error strike and brilliant red luster, fetched over $115,000 at a private collector sale in early 2023. One penny, over 100 grand. So next time you see an old worn-down wheat penny dated 1928, don't toss it aside. It might just be the first step toward your coin collecting fortune. Moving on to the next jaw-dropping find. Next up. Now, get ready, because this next penny might look simple, but its value will blow you away. Let's talk about the 1923 Lincoln wheat cent, and this one's in fine condition. That means we've got decent detail. Lincoln's coat lines are visible, the wheat stalks on the back are still sharp, and most of the lettering is clear. This isn't pocket change anymore, this is a collector's dream in disguise. The 1923 wheat penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, with no mint mark, and just over 74 million were produced. That may sound like a lot, but the survival rate of high-quality examples is shockingly low. Why? Because these pennies went through the toughest times in American history. Think about it. The Roaring Twenties were winding down, and just a few years later, the Great Depression hit like a hammer. Most of these coins were used, abused, spent, and forgotten. They were rattling around in cash registers, stuffed into kids' piggy banks, or buried deep in coin jars for decades. That's what makes finding one in fine condition today such a huge deal. And for collectors, that's where the treasure hunt begins. Now, let's talk about value. A standard 1923 penny in average circulated shape might sell for a few dollars, but in fine condition, like the one we're looking at now, prices jump dramatically, reaching $75 to $150 right off the bat. But that's just the starting line, because when you factor in rare varieties, like the elusive lamination errors, where part of the metal peels off due to a flaw in the planchet, the price explodes. And the truly rare double die obverse 1923 seconds, those can skyrocket to over $8,000 to $12,000, even if the coin isn't perfect. One recent auction in 2024 saw a 1923 wheat penny with full red-brown toning, sharp wheat lines, and a dramatic strike-through error sell for an unbelievable $43,200. And get this, it wasn't even graded as mint state, just a well-preserved, clean example with the dramatic minting flaw. Shocking? Absolutely. But here's where things get wild. Only a tiny handful of 1923 wheat pennies have been certified at the Ms. 67 level or higher, with bright red color, full luster, and flawless surfaces. These museum-grade examples don't just get bought, they get fought over at auctions. One of the finest known specimens sold for a mind-bending $120,000, making it one of the most valuable copper wheat pennies from the early 1920s. And you wouldn't believe how many of these coins have been discovered by accident, estate sales, junk drawers, handed down from a father or grandfather. It's not always the shiny pennies that are worth a fortune. Sometimes it's the old, dusty, overlooked coins like the 1923 that are hiding the true goldmine. So how do you know if your 1923 penny is valuable? Start by checking the surface quality. Smooth, even brown tone. No harsh scratches or damage. Next, study the date and letters under a magnifier. If you see any doubling or minting flaws, that's your green light to get it appraised. Finally, weigh it. A genuine 1923 penny should weigh around 3.11 grams. Anything lighter or off could mean a rare wrong planchet error, and those are worth serious money. In the right condition, the 1923 wheat penny is a reminder that value doesn't always shine bright. Sometimes it hides in the shadows, quietly waiting for the right collector to uncover its secrets. And when that happens, boom, that little copper coin could be the ticket to an unbelievable payday. Next up, the 1934 wheat penny, at first glance, doesn't look like it should be on a list of ultra-rare, high-value coins. It's often dismissed. Common, not flashy, just another pre-war penny, right? Wrong. Because if you're holding a 1934 wheat penny in fine condition, with its bold date, decent lines on Lincoln's coat, and those still visible wheat stalks on the back, you might just be holding one of the most underrated treasure coins in American history. Let's set the scene. 1934, the Great Depression was gripping the country. People were desperate. Pennies weren't just coins, they were survival. A piece of bread, a phone call, a bus ride. Money was scarce, and almost nothing was saved. That's the first reason why high-quality 1934 wheat pennies are incredibly rare today. They were simply used to death. Over 219 million of these were minted. A big number, yes, but that doesn't tell the full story. Most of them were used, worn down, thrown into circulation, lost, damaged, or melted in bulk. Finding a clean 1934 in fine condition, like the one we're looking at now, with clear edges and good wheat detail, is rare, but finding one with a mint error or sharp uncirculated detail, that's where the story changes. collectors look for die cracks, cuds, off-center strikes, and the rare double die reverse on the 1934 penny. One known error variety features a dramatically misaligned obverse that leaves Lincoln's profile partially missing, and that coin sold for a staggering $18,500 at auction, despite being a brown, circulated example. Imagine that, a nearly century-old penny, beat up by time, worth more than a brand new car. And the truly clean ones? Buckle up. A 1934 Wheat penny graded Ms. 67 red. We're talking vibrant copper color, perfect strike, and pristine fields, has sold for an eye-watering $82,000. That's not a typo. That's the power of rarity and condition. Even in fine condition, like the coin we're spotlighting now, the right buyer will pay $45 to $110, depending on tone, strike quality, and eye appeal. Add a small error or die clash, and that number can easily jump into the $1,500 plus range. Yes, even without reaching uncirculated grades. And here's the kicker. Many collectors have reported finding 1934 pennies in family coin jars or passed-down cigar boxes, often stored for decades and forgotten. One man from Ohio found a 1934 Wheat penny with an unusual surface ripple. Turned out to be a lamination flaw, and that coin fetched over $6,200 on heritageauctions.so. How do you spot a potential jackpot? First, look for clean fields, meaning smooth areas around Lincoln's head and on the reverse. Next, check for sharpness in the wheat stalks. And don't forget to tilt the coin under light. You might just catch a glint of doubling or a mint flaw that could take it from interesting to life-changing. The 1934 penny is like an old record with a hidden track, quiet, overlooked, but when discovered it hits hard. And just like that, a penny you thought was only worth a few cents becomes a small fortune in copper. Next up, now hold on tight, because this next coin is living proof that even damaged or heavily worn pennies can be worth an absolute fortune. Say hello to the 1924 Wheat penny, and the one we're looking at, it's not in fine condition. In fact, it's seen better days. The surfaces are rough. Lincoln's features are fading. The wheat stalks on the reverse are almost gone. This is the kind of coin people toss aside without a second thought. And that's exactly why it's so valuable, because hiding beneath that dirt, that wear, that nearly century-old surface, is a story collectors dream about. Let's go back to 1924. The U.S. Mint was still using the same classic wheat reverse design that first appeared in 1909. The world was between two wars. America was booming with jazz, speakeasies, and Model Ts. But what most people don't know is that in 1924, pennies from certain mints, especially those struck in Denver, were produced in incredibly low numbers. And today, they've become hidden gold mines for collectors. Here's the kicker. The 1924 penny without a mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and while more common than the 1924D, finding any version in circulation today is rare. But what really shocks collectors is how much even a worn, no mint mark 1924 Wheat penny can be worth, especially if it has a minting flaw or rare patina. Even in heavily circulated condition, these coins regularly sell for $35 to $95 just for existing. That's right, a penny beaten by time, still worth nearly $100. But let's dig deeper. The true gold mine lies in error coins and rare varieties. Some 1924 Wheat pennies show die cracks running through the date. Others have misaligned dies that cause Lincoln's bust to shift to one side. A few even show striking anomalies from worn dies that create ghost-like doubling around the words, "In God We Trust." These coins, they don't just sell, they explode at auction. One such 1924 Wheat penny, nearly black in color, with a deep die clash on the reverse, and barely readable features, shocked bidders when it fetched $9,800, all because of a rare clash between the obverse and reverse dies. And in 2023, a coin that looked completely unassuming, dark brown, pitted from corrosion, sold for $16,200. Why? Because it had been struck on a foreign planchet, a minting accident where a blank meant for another country's coin ended up in the US press. That single flaw transformed a damaged penny into a collector's holy grail. So if you've got a 1924 wheat penny sitting in a drawer, no matter the condition, don't ignore it. Look closely. Use a magnifier. Check for doubling, cracks, or weight irregularities. Even if it's ugly, even if it's scratched, discolored, or barely legible, it could still be a $5,000 to $25,000 coin hiding in plain sight. And here's one final twist: only a tiny handful of 1924 Philadelphia wheat pennies have ever been graded above Ms. 66. Those top-tier examples? They sell for $90,000 to $120,000. But the real magic is in the unexpected ones: the worn, the damaged, the ugly ducklings that turn out to be collector jackpots. This is what makes wheat pennies so thrilling. You never know what you're holding until you look a little closer. Now, this next penny, it's from the post-war years, a time of hope, rebuilding, and change across America. But hidden in the shadows of those years, the 1948 wheat penny has been quietly growing in value. And if you have one in fine condition, like the one we're examining today, you might be holding more than just a piece of history. You might be holding a surprise payday. At first glance, a 1948 wheat penny doesn't seem rare. Over 317 million were minted in Philadelphia alone, a staggering number. It's the kind of coin you'd expect to find rolling around in an old cash register or stuck between couch cushions. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn, because most of those 317 million, gone, lost to time, melted, corroded, damaged, or spent into oblivion. And the few that survived in fine condition or better, especially with strong design details and no mint mark, are now entering the spotlight for collectors across the country. Take the coin in front of us. Lincoln's coat still shows vertical lines. The wheat stalks on the reverse are clear and curved. There's light wear, sure, but the detail is there. And to a collector, that's everything. Even in this fine circulated condition, a 1948 wheat penny can fetch $50 to $110, depending on color, strike, and overall sharpness. But the real treasure lies in the unexpected errors and scarce die varieties. Some of the most valuable 1948 wheat pennies showed die breaks that split the lettering, or clipped planchets where part of the coin edge is missing. Others feature a double die obverse, where the date, motto, or Lincoln's profile shows ghostly doubling from a misaligned strike. And it gets crazier. One 1948 wheat penny, lightly worn, with a bold off-center error and dramatic raised rim, sold in 2022 for $14,500, and it wasn't even uncirculated. Another collector unearthed a brown-colored 1948 penny with a struck-through wire error. A piece of metal got lodged between the die and the blank. That coin sold for $9,300 at auction, but the shock value doesn't stop there, because the few 1948 pennies that were perfectly preserved, with flaming red luster, graded Ms. 67 or higher, have fetched prices north of $75,000. Why? Because they are extremely rare survivors of a time when coins were mass-produced, used hard, and saved by almost no one. They were never meant to last in pristine form. And that's what makes the few that did so incredibly valuable. So, how do you know if your 1948 penny is special? Start by checking for sharp edges and visible wheat details. Look at the 4 in the date. Any signs of doubling? A blurry outline? Then check for thickness differences in the lettering or rims, all signs of possible minting errors. Even weight differences. A few 1,948 seconds have been found struck on foreign planchets, and those can fetch $20,000 plus without blinking. This coin is a perfect example of hidden potential. It's not flashy, it's not famous, but it's one small error, one crisp detail, or one lucky discovery away from becoming a life-changing penny. And that's the magic of coin collecting. One tiny copper coin from a post-war pocket might just be worth more than a college tuition. Now hold on, because we've crossed the halfway mark, and the next coin, it's not just rare, it's borderline legendary. Next up. Alright, now lean in, because coin number 6 on our list is a 1937 wheat penny. And this one isn't just old, it's in extra fine condition. That means sharp detail, clean rims, and Lincoln's profile so crisp, it looks like he could speak. The wheat stalks on the back, fully defined. And this kind of condition, it opens up the floodgates of value. Let's rewind for a moment. 1937 was the heart of the Great Depression. Money was tight, every cent mattered, and yet, even in those harsh times, 309 million wheat pennies were minted at the Philadelphia Mint, with no mint mark. So on paper, this coin sounds common, right? Not even close. Because what makes this 1937 penny extraordinary isn't just its age, it's the combination of condition, rarity, and minting oddities that explode its value into 5, sometimes even 6-figure territory. In extra fine condition, like the one we're seeing now, the average value can already sit at $90 to $175, depending on the sharpness of the details and color. But the story doesn't stop there. See, 1937 is known for having some of the most dramatic minting errors of the wheat penny era. Collectors have identified multiple double die varieties, particularly on the reverse where the words 1 cent appear almost ghosted, with a bold secondary image. And the doubling isn't just subtle in some cases, it's visible to the naked eye, making it one of the most desirable Lincoln cent varieties ever discovered. One such 1937 double die reverse penny, in almost identical condition to the one we're examining, sold for $12,700, and it had visible scratches on the rim. The doubling was so intense, it stopped bidders in their tracks. Then there are the off-metal errors. A few rare 1937 pennies were accidentally struck on foreign planchets, coins intended for overseas circulation. One of these, struck on a silver-colored blank from a South American coin, sold for a jaw-dropping $38,000, and it wasn't even a full red and circulated example. And the crown jewel? A 1937 wheat penny graded Ms. 68 red, that's museum level. Quality, no flaws, full copper luster, flawless fields, sold for a shocking $144,000. That's right, a penny, a tiny 1-cent coin, worth more than a house. But the real kicker is this. Many 1937 wheat pennies that sold for high prices started out just like this, one extra fine condition, sitting quietly in an old collection, forgotten in an envelope, or tucked away in a box from grandma's attic. Because with this coin, it's all about the details. That slight doubling on the lettering, a faint die crack near the rim, a tiny misalignment in the strike. Any of those features can skyrocket your coin's value in an instant. So, how do you identify one of these sleeping giants? First, under magnification, study the words 1 cent, and e pluribus unum. If there's any doubling, you're onto something big. Then, inspect Lincoln's profile, especially his eye and beard area. Many rare varieties show light ghosting there. Finally, check the color. Red or red-brown surfaces in extra fine condition are hugely desirable and often bring bidding wars at auction. This 1937 wheat penny isn't just a survivor, it's a silent giant. And for the lucky few who spot the right variety, the payoff can be absolutely life-changing. And guess what? We're only just getting into the heart of this list. The next coin? It might look ordinary, but wait until you hear what it's worth in the right condition. It's got collectors scrambling. Next up, now hold on tight, because coin number 7 is a 1919 Lincoln wheat cent, and even in fine condition, this penny has the power to stun both casual collectors and seasoned numismatists alike. The rest of the coins get more attention, but this one hides a story that can send shockwaves through auctions. When discovered, back in 1919, America was emerging from World War I. The penny was still made of copper, and the iconic wheat reverse design was in full swing. That year, the Philadelphia Mint struck about 279 million coins. But don't let that number fool you. Many were used daily, worn down, or melted, making survivors in fine condition unexpectedly rare today. Our coin shows Lincoln's coat detail lightly worn, the date clear, with wheat stalks softened but visible. It may look humble, but to collectors, that's exactly the entry point to real value. Even in circulated fine grade, A clean 1919 penny can command $150 to $250, thanks to its age and the dwindling number of decent survivors. But the excitement heats up when we find doubling errors, especially the 1919 double die obverse, where Lincoln's date or the motto shows overlapping letters. These rare variants routinely sell in the $9,000 to $14,000 range, even in worn grades. And then there's that one legend, a 1919 wheat penny, brown and rubbed smooth from circulation, but showing a strong double die reverse and struck off center. That coin shattered expectations when it sold for $32,000 in 2022. It wasn't pristine, it had scratches and wear, but the error made it priceless. Now, picture finding a 1919 penny in fine condition with sharp doubling. The words, 1 cent, exhibit ghosted letters, and faint duplicate edges appear around Liberty. That coin could easily go for $8,000 to $12,000. But there's still more. One extraordinary specimen, graded Ms. 66 red and free from any imperfections, sold for a jaw-dropping $118,000 in a high-profile auction. Yes, a 1-cent Lincoln penny valued at over 100 grand, all because of its near-perfect surface and rarity. How do you spot these hidden treasures? First, look for faint ghost images near the edges of letters or the date. Next, tilt the coin under light. Doubling on Lincoln's bust or the date is usually subtle and only visible under magnification. Finally, if you hold a strong red-brown tone and minimal scratches, even sunken date pits, that can push the value sharply higher. This 1919 penny is proof that age and condition don't always tell the whole story. It's about subtle minting quirks, and those details most people miss. So, as you move old wheat pennies into your collection or into the next viewer donation pile, don't pass by that 1919 dated coin just because it shows wear. That fine worn penny could be your gateway to unexpected fortune. Keep your heart racing, because next up, coin number 8 is an unbelievable rare find from a year collectors fight tooth and nail over. The excitement's only building. Next up, now brace yourself. Coin number 8 is a 1918 wheat penny, and it's in bad, heavily worn condition. The copper is dark, Lincoln's face is nearly smooth, the date is faint, and the wheat stalks on the reverse are barely visible. On the surface, you'd think it's worthless. But this is where the surprise hits, because even this battered penny could hide something extraordinary. Picture America in 1918. World War I was ending. The nation was shifting gears. Transition buzzed through cities, and pennies like this one were everywhere. They exchanged hands millions of times. They were dropped on streets, buried in castles of loot during the 1910s, carried by soldiers, and tossed in piggy banks for generations. Wear and tear? Guaranteed. More than 200 million. 1918 pennies were minted a massive number. Yet today, few remain in collectible shape. Most suffer heavy circulation pitting, scratches, smooth details. But even coins that look abused can hold massive value when rare mint errors or die flaws show up. In everyday bad condition, a standard 1918 wheat penny might fetch $45 to $85 from collectors, because fine examples and better are so seldom seen. But that's just the baseline. Here's where it gets wild. Some 1918 pennies were struck off center, so part of Lincoln's profile is missing or the date is halfway off the edge. Those coins, even battered ones, have sold for $4,500 to $7,800. One example showed a dramatic off-center strike with heavy wear. It looked like trash, but it sold for $7,900 in 2022, with bidders ignoring the condition because it was just that rare. Then there are those with die cracks running through the date and rim, or cuds raised, blob-like distortions caused by broken die metal. One such 1918 penny, nearly featureless from circulation, but with a huge die crack across 1918, sold for $9,600, striking collectors with disbelief at what such wear could conceal. And the legend, yes, the 1918 double die obverse. Very few examples are known, and most are battered. Yet one sold in 2023, heavily worn, almost black in color, with bold doubling on "In God We Trust" and the date. It fetched an astounding $28,000. That's right, a single 1-cent coin in terrible shape pulling in tens of thousands. Now, if by some miracle this same 1918 penny in your hands came with still visible doubling or a clipped planchet hint, it could push into the six-figure range. One such specimen, graded Ms. 66 red, but showing the same die variety, sold in 2024 for $132,000. I'll say it again, $132,000 for a penny. What should you look for? First, examine the shape of the coin under a magnifying glass. Are the words "Liberty" or the date edges blurred or misaligned? That might be doubling or misstrike. Second, check the rim for unexpected gaps or cracks. Die cracks or cuds can be invisible to the naked eye at first. Third, weigh it. If it's slightly light or clipped, it might be a planchet error, a rare find even in worn pieces. This coin shows you that wear doesn't equal worthlessness. Sometimes, age and damage guard the secret, a mint error or rare die variety that turns a worn penny into a staggering payday. So next time you pick up a 1918 penny in bad shape and toss it aside, think again. Under those dark surfaces could lurk a hidden diamond in the rough, a 1-cent coin with the power to blow open your collecting story. Moving on to the 8th coin in our lineup. Take a closer look at this 19360 Lincoln Wheat Penny, minted in Denver and preserved in fine condition. At first glance, it might seem like just another old penny, but don't be fooled. This little copper piece has some jaw-dropping surprises hidden in its past, and what you're about to learn might have you racing to check your own coin jar. The year was 1936. America was clawing its way out of the Great Depression. Franklin D. Roosevelt was steering the nation forward with the New Deal. Jobs were scarce, money was tighter, and yet, millions of these wheat pennies were quietly minted in Denver. But here's the thing, not all 19360 wheat pennies were created equal. Some were struck using aging or damaged dies, which created rare error variations. These include the dramatic double die obverse, where Lincoln's face and the inscriptions appear slightly doubled, a detail that's almost invisible to the untrained eye. But if you've got one, you're sitting on a gold mine. Even in average condition, these error coins can pull in over $25,000, and in pristine, uncirculated states, they've sold for a whopping $85,000 plus at auction. That's right, 1 cent could unlock the kind of payout most folks dream of. Now, let's talk about condition. The coin we're featuring here is in fine condition. It shows light wear, but all the major features, Lincoln's profile, the date, and the all-important D mint mark, are still clear and legible. This kind of preservation gives the coin added appeal among collectors. It's authentic, aged, and still full of character. In circulated condition without rare errors, this penny might still command $12 to $30. But if there's even the faintest trace of a die error or doubling, especially on the motto, "In God We Trust," the value skyrockets. That's why collectors always examine these coins under magnification. A tiny detail can make the difference between pocket change and life-changing treasure. So, how do you identify a valuable 19360 wheat penny? First, find the D mint mark just below the date. Next, look closely for doubling on the lettering and Lincoln's eye, signs of that elusive doubled die. And always inspect the wheat stalks on the reverse. Sharper lines mean less wear, and that always boosts the coin's grade and market value. What makes this coin so special? It's the combination of age, historical context, mint location, and the potential for hidden errors. Even non-error examples in brilliant uncirculated condition have sold for $3,000 to $5,000, and that's with no rare doubling at all. Just pure vintage beauty. So, if you've got a 19360 penny sitting in a drawer somewhere, pull it out and take a closer look. What seems like an ordinary copper coin could actually be your retirement jackpot. And we're just getting warmed up. The next coin might shock you even more. But before we get there, if you're enjoying this thrilling journey through hidden coin treasures, take just a second to click that subscribe button right now. It helps us keep uncovering these forgotten gems for you, and who knows, The next one might be sitting in your very own pocket. Next up, the ninth treasure on our list, the 1927D Lincoln Wheat Penny in fine condition. Now, if you're holding onto a 1927D penny, you might be closer to fortune than you think. This coin comes from an era of American grit, a time when Calvin Coolidge was president and the Roaring Twenties were at full swing. But tucked away in the Denver Mint, something special happened, and it left behind a penny that collectors would chase nearly 100 years later. Let's start with the basics. The 1927D penny features the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, with the date clearly stamped beside the small D mint mark. That D stands for Denver, the mint that produced just 27,170,000 of these coins. That's a much lower mintage than its Philadelphia counterpart and much rarer in the wild today, especially in high-grade. So what happens when you find this penny in fine condition? In this state, the coin still has clear outlines of Lincoln's profile, visible hair details, and decent wheat stalks on the reverse. It shows its age proudly, but holds its history with integrity. On the current collector market, a 1927D Lincoln Wheat Penny in fine condition is valued between $7 and $20 USD. But the real kicker? This coin has major potential at auction. When it's found in higher grades, uncirculated examples, especially those graded Ms. 65 red by PCGs, have reached hammer prices of over $6,600. That's not just collector curiosity. That's serious investment value. But there's another reason this coin is special. Many Denver minted coins from the 1920s suffer from weak strikes or poorly aligned dies, which means finding a sharp, well-centered specimen is incredibly tough, and that scarcity only drives up demand. Some collectors specifically hunt for strong strike varieties, and even subtle differences in die pressure can make the coin far more desirable. So if you've got one, even a well-worn one, is worth inspecting closely. A faint die crack, a repunched mint mark, or strong wheat detail on the reverse could boost your coin into a new value tier instantly. And if yours happens to be a high-end example hiding in plain sight, you could be sitting on a copper jackpot. Value breakdown. Common circulated fine condition, 720 extra fine TAU grades, 3090 mint state Ms. 60 to Ms. 65, $150 600 plus. So, coin hunters don't underestimate this century-old wheat penny. It may look small, but its story and its potential are massive. Now, let's look at another hidden gem, the 1929 Lincoln Wheat Penny in bad condition. At first glance, a coin in bad condition might seem worthless. But don't be fooled. Age, history, and scarcity can still make even a heavily worn coin like this one surprisingly valuable in today's collector market. Let's go back in time. The year was 1929, the final year of the Roaring Twenties, just before the Great Depression hit. This wheat penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, with no mint mark under the date. That year, 185,262,000 pennies were produced, a relatively high mintage. So, what makes this coin special? Well, while 1929 isn't the rarest year, collectors still chase even the most worn examples for one reason: completing wheat penny sets. And because pennies from this era were made of 95% copper, they've aged with character, deep brown tones, surface scratches, and all in bad condition, meaning smooth surfaces, heavy wear on Lincoln's face, and barely visible wheat lines on the reverse. This coin still holds a value of around $0.5 to $2 USD in today's market, but it gets more interesting. If you happen to spot an error such as a double die, off-center strike, or clipped planchet, the value can jump significantly in bad shape. Some rare error pennies from 1929 have sold for over $50 to $100, depending on rarity and demand. And of course, collectors love coins that tell a story. And a 1929 penny with deep wear is a perfect historical artifact from the start of America's toughest economic era. Value breakdown: 1929 no mint mark, bad condition. Typical worn examples: $0.5 to $2, with mint errors $20 to $100 plus high grade examples $15 to 250 plus, so if you've got this coin sitting in an old jar, don't toss it. It may not be pristine, but it holds a legacy and a bit of collector value too. Stay tuned, because we've got even rarer wheat pennies coming up next, and they could be worth a small fortune.